Happy Giving Tuesday. Happy World Cup game day. Welcome to the Wolff Den, presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Wylie McGraw to the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den.
I appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, looking forward to a great conversation here. A lot of stuff to touch on. But for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, just give them a quick intro and then we'll get into it.
Could you say that one more time for people in the audience that don't know who I am?
Yeah, just give them a quick intro.
A little background about myself. Got it.
A bit, and then we're going to dive.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm the founder of Radical Performance Acceleration. It's a specialized business that I've been working for the last 14 years behind the scenes with powerful and prominent leaders, public figures. I've worked with celebrities, professional athletes, just all across different industries. So my work is not industry specific. I'm considered their performance accelerator. These are, titles that they give me. At the end of the day, I'm kind of a battle buddy who gets into the trenches with these prominent folks to optimize their lives personally, professionally. I'm better known as a demon slayer. So essentially, my work revolves around truly integrating into the lives of these individuals and making them the most elite versions of themselves without the stress, sacrifice, and suffering that's typically associated with reaching their levels of success. And that's why I've been such a behind-the-scenes resource for a long time. But in my background started, as a young man growing up in a household of athletics. Baseball was a primary focus. We were very competitive. My father, being a semi-pro ball player, had the three boys constantly in competition from different facets of football, baseball, soccer. But my primary focus was being a star pitcher. That's where my talent really lied, and cultivated it. I got trained by, the pros as a young man. I had arm with speeds, in the 80s when I was in high school. And I thought maybe that would be the path that I went on. But at the end of the day, as I've shared constantly with other people, the disconnect happened with the fact that I recognized that I was playing the game for the expectation of others and not for the love of it for myself. And that's what fractured my mindset and forced me to appreciate the valuable lessons of discipline and motivation and drive as an athlete. But I decided to pursue something that was more of my own, which is where the wild world bull riding became a very seductive environment for me. I was introduced to some people in that world and fell in love with it instantly. It's where my soul became alive. I got ignited into the passion and understanding of human performance in stressful situations. I turned on by the idea that I could face the most arduous of fears, no matter what, still move through it and actually perform better because of it. So for me, that became the impetus for what I decided to pursue for myself as a man, joining the military and serving as a combat infantryman with the 101st Airborne Division, 3 tours overseas, led men in war. And it was in the war that I discovered this innate gift that I had already possessed of my ability to see blind spots, expose them, eradicate them, get rid of stress, accelerate performance, and create unbelievable results for people that I was leading, which is why I got out of the military and decided to pursue that for myself and then build this business around that innate skill. So that's in a long form short here. That's the nature of my background and where I'm at today.
That's a great introduction. I want to touch on a couple things you said. Have you ever seen the 30 for 30 called Little Big Men?
I'm having a hard time actually hearing you right now for some reason. I have my stuff turned up all the way, but I don't know why I can't hear you. I just want to make sure that
there's a 30 for 30 on ESPN called Little Big Men.
Yes.
Have you seen it? It's a great documentary about the 1982 Little League World Series and this kid who was the best in the world at 12 years old, and his life was just terrible after that. There was so much expectations on him, and he kind of just got to not liking playing the game.
Right.
And I think that happens a lot these days. There's a lot of competition for people to play sports. It's interesting that you just sort of recognize it, where a lot of times it's the parents are so pushy on you to play that sport, right?
That's true. I mean, unfortunately, in society in general, parents have children, and the idea is that we are to make our parents proud. So they come to the table wanting the best for us, and sometimes that desire for us to have the best, to be the best, actually ends up forcing us and go into different directions, because they don't recognize that when you have too much pressure and containment and your expectations of your child to perform at a level that you think they should, rather than letting them discover who they really are, what they're capable of in the right containment and environment, is why we have so much anxiety and stress and chaos as young people turn into adults, and they take that with them throughout their lives. So yeah, for me, it was my father had his background playing, semi-pro ball, threw away a professional baseball career. Well, of course, as his firstborn son, having this talent, what's going to happen? It's like, I want you to be perfect. I want you to perform the way I expect you to. I had to give up high school trips and things like that because I was being trained by the California Angels pitching staff. It was always about perfecting that. And I never really got to explore kind of who I was and what I really wanted. I was born into that. So you're right about that completely. And I know that 30 for 30, I've seen a couple of shows about that with football, et cetera.
I mean, you would have been playing in college and then maybe a pro career. I mean, is that what your trajectory was? Or
that's the idea? That's what it was. But again, great, I could have done that, but what would have it had costed me? I meet, and this is the type of work that I do now with people in those positions, where I meet them and I'm introduced to them because they have built those empires, professional athletes, especially, on the back of that chaos, that perfectionism, that stress. They don't know what to do with it, but that festers inside them. So when they get to this level of stardom, they act out. They have these misgivings that you see them in the public and media constantly doing things that they shouldn't be doing. That all stems from those demons, as I call them, from childhood, that they have never eradicated or resolved. And this is what people do: is we put these pressures on people and then they never do anything about them, and they fester, and then it ends up becoming these unresolved stresses that actually impact and hinder our performance. And then they leak out and infect those that follow us or are influenced by us, which to me is like, if I would have gone down that route, what would I have been? A professional baseball player with stress, chaos, not living from a place of peace and satisfaction? What would the purpose of my success be if I'm living that way? And that's the whole point of why I do what I do today.
But you could have gone on to great success in baseball and found passion for it as it's sort of different, a different feeling as you're experiencing. It could have. So we also don't know. Maybe you should have. I mean, that's just, there's so many different paths that we could have taken. If I went here, if I did this, if I did that, not worrying about that, but just saying, I don't know that we know if you went on that maybe you wouldn't have found the passion if it was. What are your thoughts about that?
I look at it this way: understanding myself wholly the way I do now, given the fact that these were life experiences that helped introduce me to the real me, the way I was born into this world. They were not things that I became. So when we hear that is people going, I was in the military, they become the military. They don't see the military as experiences. They don't see sports as an experience. Right. They actually blend themselves into, I'm a soldier, I'm a Marine, I'm a athlete, I'm a this. For me, it was understanding that I was born into the world to do what I'm doing today. I just went through these life experiences and had those moments as an athlete, as a bull rider, eventually a combat veteran, and then someone who pursued this level of self-mastery to truly know myself without stress and chaos, because I recognized the blind spots in human performance, seeing what I've gone through in those experiences, which is what led me into understanding this is what I was actually meant to be doing all along. I just needed to filter through those challenging moments in life to discover that version of myself that I had been missing, that guy that I actually didn't get to meet until later on because of what it was expected of me or what people thought I should be or shouldn't be.
So I was spending some time with my brother. I have a twin brother, and my friends last week over Thanksgiving, and a lot of the discussion was towards the kids going to college. They're just about college age, which is scary enough for us to think about, and talking about where they're going to go. And someone close to me said, well, I kind of didn't really get to choose. I kind of just went along with what my parents sort of guided us and wanted us to go to. And we do that a lot. And that's a 17, 18-year-old. At what point should someone be able to make some of the decisions in their life on their own? And then also recognizing that the average person can't just go wherever they want to go. There's financial constraints. There's some, there's barriers to that.
Well, I think the majority of it, first and foremost, is there's a lot of self-imposed barriers. The idea that we are told that if you don't have the means, then you can't do something. It sits with people. The idea is like when I was especially in high school, and I got into bull riding, I didn't have the means either. I mean, I worked a part-time job to make a little bit of cash, but I was playing sports still. I still found a way to make it work because I wanted it more than anything. It didn't matter to me that I was broke, that I was young. I still found a way to find used gear, get the right coaches, get myself into the environment first and foremost. I was willing to face the fear of the unknown that could present itself with the idea of like, if I make this choice, it's all me and I may not get the support of family, friends, etc. I'm still going to do it anyway. I think we get caught up in this idea that our circumstances dictate our direction and they make us who we are, rather than realizing that our circumstances are designed for us to actually meet who we really are, not make us who we really are. So if we can embrace that, it doesn't matter what background you come from. Yes, I understand we have situations in our society where there are people that don't have the opportunities and it's harder for them. That doesn't mean that there isn't something that's there for them to explore or look at when it comes to what they dream, desire, or want, rather than just living under the idea that I can't get there because XYZ is in my way. Will always be a method for someone to find the way to where they really want to go, whether it's this long arc to success or they find themselves at a place of at least some stabilization and balance, even if they're not at the highest levels of success that they think they should be at. So I would say to your question is, giving people the right environments, the right challenges, the right proper containment is how someone becomes the best version of themselves, no matter what level they play at or what capacity they have. But we don't have that in society. We have people forcing their opinions and perspectives and what they think is right onto their children and other people. And then we get this never-ending constant battle back and forth of, well, I don't have the money. Well, I don't have the opportunity. Well, this person's oppressing me. Well, that thing is not working out. And then they wonder why their life is not where they really want it to be, when we are, in fact, way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I was looking at it sort of from a middle-class lens where the families are like, look, we'll pay for you if you go here, if you do this. There's a lot of that going on, which I think, the option to have it paid for and go down this path as opposed to go on your own, you'd have to have a really strong conviction and passion for that to take that option, which is, I applaud everyone who does. I just feel like in that environment, you sort of wait until you're almost graduating college to go, all right, this is when I'm going to do what I want to do when I want to.
It's that good point. It's the idea that I'm going to do X when, rather than understanding that this idea that you're going to bank your happiness, your joy, your satisfaction, your peace on the idea that you can buy it later is the reason why people never actually get to that point where they turn around and can buy anything for themselves. If you cannot find peace and satisfaction in your life and then utilize that as fuel for yourself to expand capacity, to grow, and to take those steps and move in the direction you actually want to go in, or at least you're trying to discover more about, then you're always going to feel like you're chasing the idea of happiness, chasing the idea of success. And it's a good point is people will, you can call it a bribe. I'll pay for your debt. I'll buy, pay for your college degree. I'll do that for you only if you do X. And what ends up happening is you limit people when you do that. Parents are limiting their children by doing that. People in general, even as adults now, are limiting one another and themselves by this idea that I'll get to it when, rather than recognizing that all you have is who you really are in these moments. And when you can discover that you can, in fact, resolve stress, expand your capacity, and you can get to a place of peace and satisfaction no matter what level you perform at, that is why people fail and constantly feel like they're on this never-ending quest of personal growth, achievement, and escapism, because nobody ever gives them the atmosphere, the environment to challenge them so they can discover that it doesn't matter if your parents want to buy you a college degree. What matters to you more? Do you want to feel like you're under that idea that that's not what I really want to do, but I like the idea of someone paying for something for me, rather than going, you know what, I'd rather figure it out myself and make something work because that's going to bring me a different level of satisfaction in my life? Or am I going to be stuck in this limitation under what my parents think I should be and be unsatisfied and unhappy? And 20 years later, I'm miserable in my life, even though I might have a good paying job.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of roads that are taken and choices that are made from that start of it to the unhappiness. But we are limited. We are limiting others. We're always our biggest obstacle ourselves.
Yeah.
That's number one. I mean, I myself know I can't get out of my own way for a lot of the things that have gone wrong for me. I hope to learn from mistakes, but it's tough. And I'll say, in general, we're better equipped for certain things later in life, whenever that is. That could be 5 years later, right? When you're 25 instead of 20 or 30. So that has to do with some of it. Some of this stuff, you're just in life lessons, like, what do I know now than I knew 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Sure.
So you're just better equipped as you move on in life. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take those chances.
Right. I'm going to acknowledge something you just said, is we are all essentially all on different paths ourselves, obviously. I mean, we might all be human beings, but we all have different paths, different capacities to perform. We all have our own innate abilities. We have our own skills. We have to develop and understand that you can never turn a weakness into a strength. You can only manage weaknesses, but you can optimize strengths. And when you create that balance, your level of growth actually can accelerate. But that's the thing, is what we have in society, especially now, is people are looking to, it's this emulation or epitome. They want to respect and follow what somebody else has done rather than discovering what they're capable of accomplishing. They think, well, that person wakes up and does a Navy SEAL, routine in the morning. If I do that, I'll have the success like that person. And then they end up trying to become this regurgitated drone of that said Navy SEAL doing this program, and recognizing that I don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to have to do all this crazy stuff that this person does. It breaks them and it causes burnout. So this becomes this idea that, like you just shared, is that we all have to go through our own unique sets of challenges to really discover what we're capable of. But human beings are still not as evolved mentally and through the psyche as far as they think they have become, because we're still programmed to see the negatives in life, and we're still programmed to be able to run away from things that are very challenging and very scary or unknown to us. But in my life experiences, and what many people that will even agree with this that are out there that talk about it, is you need to do the things that scare you the most when it comes to your own growth and your own change, your own progress. If you're not willing to, you're never really going to know what you're capable of. And you'll always be in this state of controlling the variables that come at you. I made a conversation.
I want to challenge that for a second, because I agree with all of that. But there are people who can be content with not growing and not taking chances. But if you're not content with doing that, then that's when you need to challenge yourself and go, and maybe you need a push. People need a push, an event, something that happens, whatever it is. There's all different types of things. Aston, we'd love to have Aston on the Wolff Den. We're ready for him. Next year is the year. Most people are hardwired to take the path of least resistance. Of course, if it was easy, everyone would be taking it, right? That's right. Someone famous said that. But what you said was, I don't know that now in today's society that there's many people, it's a lower percentage of people following what they feel they should be doing or what they're told. I feel like we're moving away from that a little. I don't have anything. That's just a gut feeling. Do you not? You don't have that? You don't get that sense?
No, you know what? In concept, yes. Yes, everybody has the idea of doing that. You can feel it where people want to do that. But what ends up happening is when they are then faced with, the situations or the environments or the training or the opportunity to then in fact follow through with the concept or the idea of carving their own path, they still cling to the comforts of what is known to them. And they actually, it's like they trickle their way through progress rather than actually surrendering control and a need to know how they're going to transform into who they're meant to be. That's the problem that I'm witnessing and experiencing. And I see it with leaders every single day. I've done it for 14 years in my business. So going back to what you said, I like that you quote challenge that is, yes, some people are content with being where they're at. That's fine. But if you're someone who's listening or you're someone out there who goes, I want to be my best. I want to know what it's like to live this elite version of myself in my life and maximize my potential and know what success is supposed to look like for me. You can't do it the way the people that are content with their life are doing it. You need to be able to be stretched and pushed and challenged outside of your control. There is no other way to transform your life. The idea that we can compartmentalize ourselves and systematize ourselves and break it down into steps, that's not transformation, that's achievement. Real transformation is very ugly and uncomfortable and it's destructive, and you need an outside force that knows how to contain you the right way to maximize you and push you past your limits. I'll give you the example as the military does it very well, where we have no idea what's coming. We cannot control the variables. We are put in environments that challenge us, stretch us, and push us in ways that literally make us the most operable people we can possibly be to get the job done the right way. This is why we become so efficient elite machines for the military. That doesn't happen if you tell someone, well, you got to read this book, and if you follow these 5 steps, you'll become an expert marksman and you'll become an elite warrior for the United States. It doesn't work that way. So if you want to be your best, human performance requires arduous challenges and the proper containment that make you feel very uncomfortable so you can blow past limitations that you've put on yourself or society has put on you as well.
But there's something to be said about that, because people who they don't have a good, easy transition from the military to the real world.
Meaning what?
Well, many of the veterans that I know have trouble integrating into the real world because of the, I guess the behavior that they're taught or what, the structure. It's just curious to me how that, I agree that, when you go in the military to become the best that you can be in the training of it, I think there's a ton of value in that. And a lot of that should be, I don't think we should live in a military world in general, but I think some of it should be. But it's interesting as you become, like, why is there a struggle? I don't know. Maybe you didn't have it, but we've had others on the show who have, and I've heard a great deal about it.
Well, I'll tell you why there's a struggle. There's many reasons why there's struggle. Number one, when you're first of all, when you're in combat arms, especially like I was, like a lot of these people I'm sure you've talked to, you're trained to be in an environment of chaos. You learn how to be calm in the midst of chaos, and those skills are transferable back into the civilian world. That's why a lot of military guys become great leaders, run big companies, etc. The other aspect of why it's hard is because they come back into a civilian life that is actually unorganized, dysfunctional, and chaotic. It doesn't matter what people believe to be true about that. That is a fact. You can see it right now across the board in our society. Our leaders are dysfunctional. We have a divided country. We have people in chaos. Everybody just wants to be able to do whatever they want. There's no consequence, no containment, no discipline. So when you have soldiers, seamen, airmen, Marines coming back, you have that combined with, I'm used to war, I'm used to discipline, I'm used to being self-motivated and started, I'm used to this high performance nature of operating. I'm coming back, thrown into this world where people are not operating that way, and they're trying to find their way back in it, trying to function with all of that around them, coupled with the stress of war, and then nobody actually knowing how to help them get through the stress. That is why they have transitional issues. So it's the nature of understanding that I'm giving you the example of an environment that makes someone their best. That is what I'm talking about when it comes to people becoming their best. You can get that same, that's what I do for a living in my work. I put my clients through the right environment in a relationship with them every single day to make them their best without the stress and the chaos and the sacrifice and the suffering that we believe to be necessary for achieving success when it's not in fact taught properly.
There's a couple of things I want to hit on here. I saw the movie The People We Hate in Weddings on Amazon. Have you heard about this?
I heard about it. I have not seen it though.
So there's a guy who works with this. I don't even know how to explain the company, but essentially there was a woman who was afraid of germs, and he had her in a garbage pail with junk and kept feeding garbage in. I mean, in the very simple sense, that's sort of what you're talking about, is it not?
There are extremes with that, absolutely. But especially when you're considering the level that someone performs at or operates at in their life, when you have leaders specifically, big CEOs, public figures, they have a different level of capacity. So what's required for them to move beyond where they're at goes beyond the idea of systematic coaching, therapy, or crisis management. They need those types of, it's almost like recreating new stressful situations for them to face whatever still plagues them head on, so they can actually eradicate it once they understand it. So that, like that gal that's facing the germs that she was scared of, it was, they can call that exposure therapy, but at the end of the day, you need to just put people in the right environments that actually recreate healthier stresses with the right support and containment, so they can break through whatever fears or limitations that have them stifled or feeling the way they do, like that gal did.
But I say that because you can give people the tools on how to feel and all the germs, but that first time they're actually in that scenario, it's different than just, hey, I'm thinking about this. I can,
Right.
I can work through it. So being actually in there, you
Right.
talked about something that also I'm a big believer in. The thing that I think annoys me the most in the world today is that there's not enough deterrent for bad behavior.
Agreed.
And like, again, I don't want to go to the military thing here, but like, there should be deterrent for bad behavior instead of getting a slap on the wrist, whatever that is, whether it's, and they try to sort of do it with the gun thing. Like if you pull a gun, it's like 10, 20, 25, but then they have these laws and they just don't enforce them, which makes it even less of a deterrent for people not to follow the laws.
Well, it starts with leaders, obviously. Everything always starts with the leader. And you're right. That's a big deal is now it's become normalized to let people get away with kind of, almost whatever they want. And then when you, here's the thing is when you then try to contain them, you discipline them, you provide them consequence for their actions or behaviors, their reactions to you. It's adolescence. They come back with these arguments of I have the right to do whatever I want. It's my freedom of speech. It's my right to bear arms. It's my right to do this. The Constitution lays me out to this. And at the end of the day, there's one-sided viewpoints on what that actually means. And you brought it back here is like, we don't have enough discipline to contain people right anymore. We are allowing people to get away because we're afraid of the confrontation. We're afraid of the discomfort and what somebody might say about us, how people are going to react. And then everybody does that simultaneously. And our leaders are the biggest culprits to it. And then what ends up happening, we have anarchy, chaos, and division, which is clearly the byproduct that we're experiencing right now because we don't discipline people.
Is fear is it? It's just fear?
Fear is a big factor.
Stopping
big factor.
People.
Say that again.
Is that that's the biggest? Is that the biggest factor? Would you say?
Fear and unresolved stress simultaneously. That messes with people's ability to hold to a standard. And that's the thing. That's why it's easy to see people now. You can watch people on video nowadays. Our leaders, they'll say one thing a year ago on video, and then they'll come back and say the other thing, and nobody thinks the wiser of it. They just let it go, and they don't go, wait a minute. What kind of standards does this person have? This person's supposed to represent X amount of people or this group or this state, and yet they're flip-flopping. There's no standard there anymore. That's okay. You know why? Because I like their policy on this over here. So we kind of like just let it be, and then it just becomes this like hodgepodge of nothingness. That's the problem. But people are afraid, and they don't realize that fear is the reason why we're having so much dysfunction. And fear is necessary for us to identify where things need to change.
Yeah. Tracy Litt, a friend of mine, is a personal growth and success mentor for women. She has a great TED Talk on fear. I put it here. It's called Dear Fear. It's not you, it's me. I encourage.
I think I've heard that. That you said a TED Talk, yeah?
Yeah, it's a TED Talk. She's great. But you had like the fear for me, and I don't know if it wasn't really fear, but I had so many great ideas over the course of my life, and I'm not. There's laziness in me. There just is. It's a fact. I'm a little lazy. I'm a little selfish. I'm very, very aware of who I am. And so when I had these ideas, the second I hit that first roadblock, I talk about this. Like I just said, I'm not going to do this. I won't be able to do that. And when I did the ticket time machine, I just said, you know what? F it. I'm going right through and I'm bulldozing all of this stuff. I don't really know what it was that got me to the point to do it. But and that's really what you have to do is to say, look, I'm going to do this because it's important to me. I'm going to find a way to do it. The first thing you do is, hey, how can I figure this out myself? And the second thing is, who do I know who's either been through it or can help me get through it? And there's value for what you offer, but some of that could just start from someone who's been there and done it. And it doesn't have to be this big production. It just be a conversation with someone who has done it and who can give you a little bit of encouragement. And that's just really to get you jump started. Sure. Not really to take you through the process.
That's absolutely right. I mean, there are people that are in a position where you are at and going, you know what? I'm not in a position or ready to go military style and hire a coach that's going to basically kick my ass every single day, to be like live with me and do all these crazy things. But sitting down with someone who has broken through these types of barriers that I might experience and really connecting with them and hearing insights can provide people this valuable information for them to start processing and creating direction for themselves. The only way then you can apply it is you have that conviction that you said you had, where clearly you said, I don't know what it was. That's the beautiful part about life. Sometimes the biggest changes happen when we have no idea where it's coming from or what it actually is. All we feel, all we intuit is the fact that it has to happen and this is the direction I'm going to go. The problem, like, again, going to what you just said, is with everyone else that kind of talks about change and growth and being their best, what ends up happening is we highly compartmentalize and we overwork our thinking. We don't connect enough to feeling and trusting that the path that's often going to get us through, like where you got to, Matt, is full of unknowns and things we're unaware of, and it's going to cause us to feel something that's different, that is not what we expected, but I'm going to embrace that anyway, and I'm going to walk towards it and run towards it, and that's where you're going to get that experience of success.
Well, in certain respects, if it's a company, an idea, there's a high rate of failure in there, and that's part of what deters people from doing it, right? They don't know it's going to work. Or maybe have the confidence in themselves, whatever that is. But there is, I mean, it's even like marriage, right? If marriage is 50-50, some people don't want to take that chance. It's not for them. But I'm going to ask an obvious, like what I think is an obvious question that you may or may not get. Like, why wouldn't somebody want to be the best version of themselves?
Why wouldn't they?
You would think that everyone would want to be.
Well, it's because in concept, it sounds good. It feels good. It's nice to have dreams and be in the clouds about it. There are some people that find contentment in being average. They're happy with it. I think it's also subjective. I think being our best, there's a lot of marketing around what it looks like. Look at these guys up here. This is what being your best looks like. Look at this money over here. This is what being your best looks like. And it's a false equivalency that I feel that it causes people to make decisions that maybe are not good for them. Maybe they want to be kind of what they consider average, and that might be their best. So that person's average might actually be them being their best, but we are perceive it as, well, that person's just average. Well, if he's making 60 grand a year at a job that person loves and their family loves them, they have great relationships and they're healthy and happy and they feel free and at peace, which I've met some people living in the South that way, etc. Why can't them be their best at that level? Why do we have to put this like objective definition on what it looks like? So yes, there are some people that consider that as their best, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it whatsoever. It's those that feel this drive inside to go, I need to know how high performance I can get in my life. That's a completely different beast altogether. Those are the people that need to be challenged and pushed so they can know what their best actually looks like. Yeah,
I have this argument or discussion all the time, and I know this is something that you talk about often. Like, what do we define success as? And I even just have this conversation with Ticket Time Machine. Like, yeah, the money's not there yet, but it's been a huge success so far. I think it's important to celebrate all the victories that we have, small or not, but then to realize, yes, it's successful. We're not anywhere near where we want to go, but it's successful. And if I walked away tomorrow, it still could be considered a success in some ways.
Right. I mean, why not look at how well are you living your life on a day-to-day basis? See that as success. Is your relationship with your partners, your spouses, your children, your animals, yourself, is that good? Do you feel healthy? Do you feel free somewhere in your life? Do you feel like you've got some contentment? We don't celebrate those as successes. We see them as mere roadblocks to what we deem as a success over here. The idea that money and notoriety and growth define success is a dying metric. I think it's antiquated, and I think we need to look at and respect people that are willing to live a very powerfully balanced and optimal life from standards and considering the impact that they have on those around them as success, and the byproducts of our abilities to achieve, like money, business growth, popularity. That's all they are, is just our achievement skill sets, but it's backwards. And like you said, it's like I look at it when I was out of the military and I was discovering more about myself. I didn't, I wasn't wealthy. I didn't have all of the things that I currently have in my life today, but it was almost like I could appreciate the fact that I got to wake up, eat good food when I needed to, had a bed to sleep in at night. I had good water to drink. For me, that's success in itself. And if we can redefine what it looks like, we can actually change our own stress levels around what it means for us to achieve it. And we can start living a better life so that the things that we want come a little bit more effortlessly to us. And then the last piece, Matt, you said earlier, is we see failure as separate of success, and we quit when we experience a massive failure. Failure is actually a part of success. If you cannot appreciate failure, you can't appreciate success itself.
Yeah, you don't have to fail to succeed, though. That's a myth in my eyes. I don't have to fit. Like, you can, and you can get past it. There's plenty of people who've done it. Some people have the luxury of failing more often than not, right? It's a weird. It's all funny math with success. Like, even like, data and numbers and fudging it however you want. Like, hey, I missed 3 out of 7. I'm a Hall of Famer in baseball, right? But you do that in basketball, you're not going to see the floor very often.
Well, failure, I think it can be subjective too. You apply to different, like if I'm in the gym and I want to build a muscle, I can work that muscle out to failure to then succeed in growth. But failure when it comes to succeeding in life, like business or in relationships, I look at it as finding answers in life. If you consider an acronym FAIL, you're just discovering where to optimize the successes of each step or that progress and that dynamic. So I think failure is success. It's just looked at as like the ugly redheaded stepchild that people try to avoid, and then they end up tripping on themselves and never really appreciating the value of, well, life is all about finding answers. It's all about discovering more of who we are and not becoming some version of ourselves that we're expected to be, but really finding that space of peace in every little single thing we put our focus and our attention to.
Well, we worry so much about what everyone else thinks about how successful we are, but the only person it really matters to is yourself. Because you could be, fat, dumb, and happy, right? I mean, that's the old phrase, fat, dumb, and happy, but it's true. Like, if that's what you want to be in life, and who cares what everyone else thinks? Obviously, there's some health implications there.
Yeah.
But that's all it matters is to you. And obviously, if you have family you need to support, but that would count. That would be, part of what you think is success for what I need.
It matters. It matters to the person if they want to be fat, dumb, and happy, only until they start affecting others around them with their whatever's going on in their life. I have no problem with people. Absolutely. Like, you want to be fat, dumb, and happy, go for it. It's like, kind of like, I'll give you an example. If you want to smoke a cigarette, go for it. But if you start blowing your cigarette smoke into a crowded restaurant, now we've got a problem, because it doesn't matter if it's your right to smoke. Now you're affecting people around you that should not have to be exposed to that. So this is where we start drawing the line, where you want to live your life over here. Absolutely. But when you start having an effect on others, when you become a public figure, a celebrity, a coach, an athlete, a leader, and you start infecting others with all of your nonsense, that's where we have to step up and actually have some discipline to say no. Consequences and discipline are a must here. We can't have people just, well, it's my right to do it. I want to live this way. Good. Don't affect others if you want to. Go enjoy yourself. But when you start doing that, that completely changes the story and the conversation altogether.
Yeah, I think that's what is so confusing about the gay rights in this world. Like, what do you care? If it's not affecting you, and it's not in any way, then why would someone care? But if it was, if we start, and we're not going to get down this, but if you start talking about, gun stuff and voting, I mean, all that affects other people. But if it's just affecting you, then sure, go ahead and do whatever it is you want with your life. So, if someone,
why are you giving attention to it if it's not really actually affecting you? So what that tells me is then that means something's completely off with that person or that group of people themselves, where they can give that kind of attention or credence to something that really doesn't matter. When it starts to infiltrate then into them and actually causing a problem, then it's time to address it. But the problem here that we have when that happens, Matt, is we've lost what's called proper discourse and public debate and argumentation. Now it's about who's loudest, who yells the most, and who can win at all costs. There is no finding common ground anymore. It's only us versus them. It's only I'm right because I say things that are very controversial or very strong. They're stark. They're challenging. It's now all about how do we create reactions in people. And this is what I've seen is like, we are literally reverting back to high school again. We are going back to where this is the attitude we have in society. And the problem goes back to the people at the top. We cannot discourse properly. There's no decorum. There's no couth anymore. People don't actually find common ground with each other. So the whole point of the United States especially is this hodgepodge melting pot of so many different backgrounds and personalities. Everybody just wants it their way. Everybody wants their rights their way. And nobody cares about the impact that they have on others around them, because it is selfishness, it's adolescence, and it's literally from a place of unresolved stress that has been passed down generation after generation.
And I know there's another topic that you feel strongly about. I think social media has inflamed that issue. Social media is great. There's so many good things about social media and the internet and all this stuff, but the dark side of it is exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Social media, as I've seen it, has unfortunately created more issue than it has problem solving. It can be a good tool. The problem with it is when it's uncontained, like many platforms are, people utilize it for their own therapy. They use it for their dumping ground. It's like, I've even seen on LinkedIn nowadays too, where LinkedIn used to be business connections, people working together, finding networks. Now people are sharing very intimate personal stories that kind of feel like, why did you share that on a business platform? Same thing with like Facebook.
Do you
Instagram,
feel that way?
All of these platforms.
Do you feel that way about LinkedIn? Because I was going to say LinkedIn to me is that platform that's probably the best. If I had to just stay with one, I'd keep LinkedIn and get rid of the rest and be okay with a splattering of those. Do you feel that way when you see something like that?
The thing is, that's again an innate part of my specialty is I can see where people might look at it and go, what's the problem with that? They're being vulnerable with you. Yeah, they're being quote vulnerable, but they don't realize sometimes we're a little bit too lackadaisical with our vulnerability. We're giving way too much information and we're spilling way too much about ourselves and our traumas and all of our things into these platforms. I'm not saying LinkedIn isn't a good place, because I have found some really good people that I either known from the military or I've connected with. We've had some great conversations. It's just, I'm utilizing that as an example that people are starting to misuse social media across the spectrum for things that they're dealing with, rather than containing themselves and then using it properly for what its benefit was always meant to be when it was created.
What if those are cries for help?
Say that again?
Maybe those are cries for help.
Oh, I guarantee they are.
Yeah. I think social media, it's just, we can't have a conversation we agree on everything. And we're just having conversations like this, even though we agree on everything. It's unbelievable what it's become, but
yeah, well, there are cries for help, but I think majority of it too, unfortunately, comes from this. It's asymmetrical growth in technology has created a narcissistic epidemic where it's all about vanity and the amount of likes and followers you can get that people have tied their identities to. And that then creates massive anxiety that we see in these younger generations, because that's what they feel their life is, rather than realizing it's been a tool that's designed to create some connection, not to identify who you really are. And when you take away something like that from someone who's so used to tying their identity to it, it creates trauma within them. That's a problem. That is a massive problem.
Well, they've added of dollar value to followers, which,
right,
what happens
success.
When you do that. And then there's also this herd mentality, like you're like the Swifties, right?
Yeah.
You can say nothing bad about Taylor Swift, and I like Taylor Swift a lot. There's certainly plenty of criticism that could be for her, but man, they jump on you. I've seen it. Even things that I agree with, you make a comment and the people, they don't, I don't know.
That's that's unhealthy. That's unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to when you started in the military. Why did you go into the military? Like, when did you first think this is something I could do, or even heard about? I mean, I just would like to know, like, what was the mindset?
Yeah, I mean, well, aside from the fact that every man in my family had served in the military from World War II on. My grandfathers were both at Normandy. My dad's dad was a naval signalman for the gunfire that pounded the bunkers on the shores of Normandy. My mother's dad flew with Army Air Corps and dropped bombs over France and things like that. My father was a corpsman in Vietnam. My uncles were all special ops in Vietnam. My stepfather was Desert Storm. So everybody in my family, we just always had this, I would say, time-honored tradition to serve and honor the nation that we were born into. And it was just part of our, I think, our family fabric.
But you knew that? I mean, when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, you think, I'm going to be in the military one day.
No, not at all. It wasn't even a thought process there. It was sports was the only thing, but it was when I got older. I think my middle brother and I were, I think we were 14. I was 14 or something like that. He was 13. And I remember we did a junior Marine Corps program that was being offered. Our boxing instructor was a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, where we had boxed in West Anaheim. And, he was like, hey, you guys should join this program. You're very disciplined. I want you guys are athletes. I want you guys to participate. We're like, okay, let's do it. My dad said, absolutely. So we did this program. We fell in love with the structure and the discipline of the Marine Corps. We did this like mini boot camp after 12 weeks of training, about 2 weeks long at Camp Pendleton, California. And then my brother and I thought in high school, like, what do you want to do? I was already riding bulls and I was already being turned on by the very scary environments of challenge. And I thought, where else can I go become more? I wanted to seek out more challenges like that. And then we decided together, I think the military is where I want to go. He wanted to go to BUDS and be a SEAL, and I wanted to go jump out of airplanes and be a Ranger. So it was that became a choice we decided to make when we were in the middle of our high school tenure.
So that be all that you can be, which is the Army.
That was the slogan when I joined in '97. Yeah. Yes,
and that speaks to you because it's sort of a mantra for what you do today.
Yeah, optimize, be everything that you can possibly be. Do whatever it takes to get there. Face challenges, face fears, do crazy, cool stuff, and expose your truest, fullest potential, and that's how you'll live the life that you really want.
I imagine there might have been some surprise in your family when you pivot from sports to serving, because in their eyes maybe they thought, all right, he's 5, 6, 7. It's in the back of his mind. He's not talking about it at 8, 9, and then bam, was there a little bit of surprise?
Well, I mean, there was quite a bit of tension when I decided to start bull riding. That definitely threw off the whole idea of where my father expected me to go. Created some turmoil in the family dynamic. But again, my family already had its own chaos going on anyway, which is what started to push me away from baseball. But when I decided to jump in full force, and then I came to the table and said, hey, look, I want out of here. I want to join the military. My father goes, I think that's a good idea. And just because he was irritated that I decided to break away from what he expected me to be. So it was like this perfect alignment where obviously I'm meant to go this route, and I fell in love with the idea of doing it. And when I showed up to the recruiter station, it just took off for me. So that, I think that was more of a divine intervention than I realized at the time.
Yeah, it's my hat's off to anyone who do it. I imagine if there was a draft, I'd find some way to avoid it. And that's just me being honest. I don't think I'd be good at it. But, so I think there's a point where like, you wouldn't even want me in there. But there's got to be that, right? I mean, not everyone is cut out for it, even if they want to be a part of it.
And that's okay. Not everybody is cut out for it. It's not, it's a completely different world altogether. You're adapting to a completely different culture and mechanism that operates at a completely different level. And that's fine. There's all different jobs that people get into, but especially combat arms, when you get into these frontline jobs that we serve in, it challenges you in ways that nothing else will. And I think that it's important to realize it doesn't. I hear people say, hey, I wish I could have joined. You don't have to apologize or feel bad. It's not for everyone. But at the end of the day, it's like, I thought about it, I even told my wife, if something really happened right now, I kind of felt this, like, would I actually be willing to go back into it in my, being in my 40s? And I'm like, I still have that feeling inside. That warrior nature doesn't go away. It's always going to be a part of me. So, what's that?
You have kids?
No.
Okay.
Just a dog. I love my dog. My work is my life. It's not a business that I disconnect from. When I don't do a 9 to 5, I literally live and breathe and eat and sleep my work. My business is doing what I do. So I don't have, my capacity for children. I put my focus in taking care of these powerful people to give them the life that they've been driving themselves to achieve. So that's the nature of why I decided not to do that route.
But you still have, like, you're married now, so there is more to give up and consequence if something were to happen. When you're a young kid, of course you have family, but you feel like you have less to lose. I think some people do. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I have a great experience in my relationship. My life is what I want it to be. I feel satisfaction, a set point of peace on a daily basis, which is, it doesn't mean I'm not human and I don't have my days where I feel a little frustrated with something, or I might have a little bit of moment of like, irritation about it. That's normal. We're human. We're going to have those emotions.
What is something that gets you that way? Like, because being so at peace, like what is something that, it's probably like me sometimes the dumbest things that people be like, oh, that's stupid. But
it's not the dumb things that I see, because those things don't deserve my energy. I don't need to give someone who's driving like a jerk on the road my attention. That's giving them power. So that's not a thing. But I look at it this way, because of my crusade that I'm on to slay the demons of these powerful people. What I see going on in our country and in our world in general right now, what leaders and people of power and influence are doing to society, that kind of gets me going. That gets my goose, which is why I'm passionate about getting my work more public since I've been behind the scenes for so long, is because it's time to stop and end the dysfunction that I'm constantly living around. I can feel the pain of the world around me. I can see it. And it's almost like, where are the standards? That is something that kind of gets me on a daily basis. But when I talk about peace, I'm talking about a set point, not an emotion. A set point of how you live your life can be peace. And if you get irritated, that doesn't throw you off of your set point. You can always come back to that set point. Being in emotions is fine. It's human nature. We're allowed to have them. And that's the aspect of what I've talked about before, where there's no such thing as a negative or positive emotion. There's just emotions. It's how you respond and utilize them that creates negative or positive situations. That's the biggest difference. So I go back to my peace in my life because I live what it is that I'm talking about people can achieve. And it doesn't mean that I don't have my days where I'm like, I'm irritated that I had to deal with that person XYZ, but I'm good with it because I understand where it's coming from. And then I process and move back to my set point. And people can achieve that too.
Tell us about Wise Words and Whiskey.
Yeah, it's my new podcast that we just launched. I got to tell you, Matt, that's a labor of love. But we've, for the last couple of years, had people saying, hey, look, you're a whiskey connoisseur and you have this passion for providing insights to live an optimal high performance life. You're all about it. So why don't you marry the two and create a show for people to come hang out, learn about really cool quality whiskeys, bring on some cool guests. You can sip these whiskeys and have low-key conversations on high performance living. And that's the nature of what the show is all about. It's all about having really unbelievable, non-preset conversations, kind of like what we're doing right now, where we can sip a very specific type of dram and pull out some really cool insights, wise words for people that want to kick back with us, hang out, and kind of learn ways in which they can start applying to their lives to experience more peace and satisfaction with what they're doing. That's been a passion project. So it's now kind of out live right now across YouTube and other different channels that people listen to it.
Yeah, we would, when I get some high performance, I'm happy to come on and talk. The funny thing would be a couple things. I spell whiskey with an E, first of all. I don't know if it's right or not, but that's how I spell whiskey. And I am not a high-end guy. I'm a peanut butter whiskey. Give me a flavor, which obviously you would want no part of when you're a whiskey connoisseur, right?
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about it, which I love, is I bring a guest on, and what ends up happening is we make the introduction. I tell people, but that why I actually brought them on the show, and then we open up the bottle of whiskey so people can learn about them. I want people to have the experience of go, no, I'm a low tier level whiskey person, but Wylie is going to introduce me to what single malt scotches are, or what an Irish whiskey is, or a bourbon, and I can start learning how to enjoy the experience of sipping these types of spirits, because they're not just meant for us to get drunk. They're actually meant for us to have an appreciation and a value towards these different types that we are being offered. So with you, it's kind of, it makes total sense. It's like, look, have an experience with something completely different. Bring your nose and your palate into it, but do it while you're listening to some really cool conversation. And that's the whole purpose behind it, because whiskey is an unbelievable art. It's high performance in the nature of how they distill it. I love what it's all about. And the last point to your meds, whiskey with an E that's properly spelled. Whiskey with a Y with no E is how they do it in Scotland. Scotland is why it's W-H-I-S-K-Y. W-H-I-S-K-E-Y is in Ireland and other facets like bourbons, etc. So that's the nuanced difference between why it's spelled differently. But they're both correct.
Yeah, I spell Hanukkah with a C-H and a double K at the end. So it's funny, you can spell it however you want. I'm going to introduce you to my friend who's got a whiskey collection that I think you would be impressed by. It's
sounds great.
something else there. The who's the guest that you would love to have, that you know, if you could just bring anyone on right now to have a conversation with, and that sort of gets us towards the last question afterwards. But who's a guest that you'd love to have on?
Wow. You know what? I'll make this quick. I care about having interesting people more so than what their title is. We've got some conversations being started with, you know, animal attack survivors, like the guy that choked out the mountain lion. We've got people that survive shark attacks. That's high performance mindset right there. I've had a pro baseball player on. I've had a comedian, you know, a firefighter, paramedic, a business, you know, leader. So I always like to look for the type of quality person. But for me, I don't know. I'm looking at General David Petraeus was my division commander in Iraq. Him and I are connected on LinkedIn as well. I would love to just bring him on and have a really cool conversation about his high performance nature and how he lives his life. Because I think, given our backgrounds with serving in the military, him being my division commander with 101st Airborne Division,
he knew who you are. I mean, because he didn't know who you were, though, did he?
What's that?
Did he know who you were?
Yeah, I mean, we connected on LinkedIn, reached out to him, and absolutely was like, you know, pleasure connecting with you. He clearly saw that I was a soldier with the 101st, so there was that immediate bond right there. So, I mean, he just seems like an all-around down-to-earth guy. I've talked to some folks that know him personally who said the same thing. So
it seems like a no-brainer. I get that all the time, where there's that connection that you have with someone, and people, they just kind of dismiss them. Like, hey, we went to the same high school. Right? We went to the same college. We worked here. We were part of this organization. Like, how do you just ignore someone like that? But it happens all too much. That's another pet peeve.
Yeah, of course.
Another conversation. We talked about leaders, and is it safe to say that you think the direction that Elon Musk is leading in is not good? Just based on some of the stuff we had. That's my thing. I think he's become less of a leader. And I don't know what, and I don't know, I didn't know him before anyway, but people had him up here, and I guess it depends on what you look at, but I think it's not good.
Without getting too deep into the woods with that, I've had, you know, I've worked with some folks in the past that were our close friends with him and his brother, and they have mentioned they wish that Elon would be the type that's open to the work that I do, because I know and what they've even concurred and what I've seen and what people can see on the surface, if you're privy to be aware of it, is he's just operating from, unfortunately, the demons that still plague him from his childhood. It's very polarizing the way in which he performs in this, especially nowadays with Twitter. You know, we can argue back and forth on what he's representing, what he's not representing, and I don't want to get into that aspect. But you know, that's the point of why I do what I do, is because I can see the dysfunction that is being created by people like him in those positions that have that kind of influence. And when they are operating from their own chaos, they're going to infect people that they're literally leading, which is exactly what's happening right now across that platform.
There's two parts about this, and you can talk about the thought process and how someone feels and what they think, and then you could talk about the behavior. Both are concerning, but the behavior is what becomes more concerning.
That's the behavior is the byproduct or the action of what's going on internally, the emotional instability, the mental, you know, chaos that's going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much money he's been able to accumulate or what kind of companies he's built. It's almost like, why don't we look at it and go, this is unacceptable for someone in that position to behave this way? We don't do that. We go, well, you know, he's going to go to Mars and he's created electric cars. So we got to give him a break, because look at him. He's so successful. Look what he's done for humanity. At what point do we stop and go, no more? Unacceptable that we do not demand people like that to be their best, to live a life of actual standard and balance, and stop creating chaos in society. Why do we accept that as normal? And that's the whole point of why I do what I do.
And my example would be, like, again, thinking and doing is like, he posted a tweet with a gun and code. Did you see this? I'm like, it's okay if that's what your table looks like, but what would make you as a leader think that it's a good idea to put this out there? That's, to me, the difference.
Because at the end of the day, he doesn't realize, he's not even aware of what he's actually doing, what's driving the behavior. It comes back down to creating controversy and creating an uproar. Because when you're picked on as a young man who's a geek, when you're someone who's intelligent, and you carry that kind of like frustration, anger, and rage your entire life of how you were treated, you end up having power. You turn around, and what ends up happening, it dictates than how you operate out in the world. And that's exactly what we're experiencing. And he's not alone. Politicians are doing that. These are people who've never faced their own truth. They've never battled through those demons head on. They've never resolved those stresses. And now they're operating with power and influence going, I can say and do things because look at me, look what I can create. I can cause the same type of pain that I've been in out here in this world, and nobody can do anything about it.
Yeah, it's different now too, because he's had a lot of power and money for a long time. He had the Dogecoin thing was a big thing. That wasn't even that long ago. It's just, it's interest life, who knows? Someone will.
That's why I'm out in the world doing this and getting after people that are in that position that really want to live a better, more optimized life so that their power and influence actually creates more positive growth. That's why I care about the fact that it's important to do this type of challenging stuff so that people stop living from a place of limitation and chaos, and they can start to experience what we're always meant to experience together, which is optimized standards and peace and satisfaction with ourselves and our country.
How many people can you help at once and over the course of the year? I mean, you can't just have 20 people that you're involved with, because you have to give time and attention and energy.
Well, that's the thing is I'm integrated into each individual client's life that I work with. I'm basically a personal confidant that lives and travels with my clients. So I maybe 2 to 3 people a year.
That's it. And this is obviously high end. So
very high level. Yeah. I mean, I don't care about titles. Again, my clients call me all the different things they want to. At the end of the day, it's just, you can call me a glorified, high paid, high level janitor. I'm here to clean up shit and get things done for these people so they can act, and then I get out of their way.
I always said
they come in, I optimize their lives, and I get the hell out of their way, and they go off and do what they're meant to do.
Yeah, I always said, I don't care what you call me. These titles, people are all hyped up on titles. I mean, it doesn't matter what you call me. It matters what you have me do, what you pay me, how do you treat me, and all of that. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everyone gets. You can spend 24 hours, a full day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose, and what would you guys do? And let's say that you're not working with them, but you could have conversations that you might have if you were working with them. But not someone you want to work with, someone you want to spend a day with off the clock.
Yeah, it would be. That's easy. It's Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. It's our first one.
Keanu Reeves he's in alignment. We have very similar philosophies on how we see life. What we recognize the ability to understand what the difference between personal truth and actual truth are. I mean, I just really value who he is as a person in general. He's definitely somebody I could see spending 24 hours with. And I got to tell you, it probably would just be an unbelievable dynamic conversation for that 24 hours. I have no idea what would happen, and that's the best part about it. But he's the guy I would do it.
Did you ever see, he has one of the best cameos in movie history. Have you seen the movie Always My Maybe or something? What was the name of that? Always Be My Maybe?
I think so.
Yeah. Have you seen it? It's on Netflix. It's got Ali Wong in it, and he's got a cameo in there. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the best cameos. I don't want to spoil it.
I'll check it out.
It's one of the funniest, just the best cameos in the world. I don't think we've had.
Well, he's got, and Constantine too, like the sequel that I heard that was going to be something that's coming out as well, which that's why I think him and I would get along, because I'm a living, breathing Constantine in the work that I do. And I think we'd have a great conversation on all those aspects. So
have you reached
just
out to him
all around guy
on the podcast?
Say again?
Have you reached out to him to come on the podcast?
I have my PR and media team. They're in the works with that right now.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. I mean, we reach out to everybody. I don't care. Here's the thing. I don't care who you are, how many followers you have. There's people in my network who have no idea who you are. And you have stuff that's valuable to talk about outside of, Bill and Ted's, right? You're not coming on to bring them on to talk about Bill and Ted's. You'll talk about Bill and Ted's, but there's value to that, to people who don't know. And I think that, and I'm going to check out your podcast. I just heard about it.
I'd appreciate that. It'd be great to have more people joining the conversation, and you and I will have a further conversation as well.
Yeah. And I think it's the same thing. Like it's unscripted. So it's not like I can go watch a Keanu Reeves interview and they're all going to sound the same because he has the questions that he was given to him. And so I think it would be a great, do you think he's a whiskey drinker? Do you know anything about?
I think a little bit. Yeah. And that's why we have people my team's working on that aspect of it. And again, people that are in that industry. I've worked in Hollywood, so I definitely have contacts that can reach out. So we're working on those things too, because it's important to where the conversation we're having on Wise Words and Whiskey with Wylie McGraw is unscripted, and it's all about low key. It's no more of this flashy marketing, everybody's stroking each other's ego kind of stuff. It's literally like, let's have some really down to earth, great stuff that we can unpack together to give the audience a refresher or a reprieve to drink some good stuff with us and actually learn some cool insights on very specific topics that nobody talks about when it comes to the guest.
Yeah, I think it's great. I look forward to listening to it. And Keanu Reeves is a great choice. I don't think anyone's chosen before. If I was going to choose an actor, it would be Jason Bateman. That would be my guy. Would love to have a chat with Jason Bateman.
Love it.
Yeah, well, great to have you. Check out Wylie McGraw, spelling WYLIEMCGRAW.com. Wise Words and Whiskey with Wylie McGraw. You can find it on YouTube and all the podcast channels. Great to chat here, and look forward to talking again. And when you make your way back to Florida, let me know. I'm down the road.
I'll let you know, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Tune in tomorrow. We got another episode of the Wolff Den. Right now, it's USA soccer time. We need a win, and go USA. Talk to you soon.